all the body language that is not in a positive way. You know when you play a Grand Slam final that you're going to be nervous.
What does it take to leave John McEnroe speechless? Not impressed, not nodding along, genuinely, visibly out of words on live television. Because that man went 82 wins and 3 losses in 1984. He held the highest win rate in open-era history for 41 years. He watched Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal each build the greatest seasons of their careers and fall short of what he did in a single calendar year. Nothing moved him past amazement. Until Sunday in Rome, Jannik Sinner completed his 34th consecutive Masters 1000 win. He broke the one record that made even Nadal, 4 consecutive Masters titles, the king of clay at his most suffocating, look human. He did not just match it, he broke it by 11. McEnroe watched it happen and called it very amazing on ESPN. That is not a compliment. That is a man realizing the sport just moved somewhere he cannot fully explain. Subscribe now. The draw for Roland Garros drops tomorrow, and Sinner walks in as the heaviest favorite this tournament has seen in years. What happens next in Paris will make Rome look like a warm-up, and to understand why, you have to go back to a number that has been sitting quietly in the history books for 15 years. 31. That was Novak Djokovic's record for consecutive wins at ATP Masters 1000 level. He built it in 2011, a year widely considered the greatest single season any male player has ever produced. That streak ran from the second round of Indian Wells all the way to the Cincinnati Open final. Djokovic won 6 Masters titles that year. He finished the season with a 70-6 record. He won 3 Grand Slams. He beat Federer and Nadal a combined 10 times. The tennis world looked at those 31 consecutive half-Masters 1000 wins and quietly agreed it was the kind of number that does not get touched in a generation. Roger Federer never touched it. At his most dominant, Federer peaked below it and moved on. Rafael Nadal, the man who turned clay into a personal kingdom for 2 decades, who won Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid, Rome, and Roland Garros in the same calendar year, who made every clay court specialist on tour feel like they were playing a different sport, built his best Masters 1000 streak in 2013. 4 titles, 23 consecutive wins. He fell short of Djokovic's record by 8 matches and never got close again. 23 was the ceiling for Nadal, the man whose name is permanently attached to clay court dominance, the man who won 14 French Open titles, the man whose movement, spin, and physical endurance on that surface remains the single most one-sided display of surface mastery the sport has ever seen. 23 consecutive Masters 1000 wins was the best he ever managed, and it made him look, by the standards of what Sinner just did, entirely human. Because Sinner reached 23 in Madrid, in the second round, against a qualifier. He was not even halfway through what was coming. The streak that Sinner built started in Paris last November. A second-round win over Zizou Bergs, routine, clinical. The kind of match that gets filed away and forgotten. Nobody watching that match in November was thinking about Djokovic's record. Nobody was thinking about Nadal's best run. Nobody was thinking about history at all. It was Paris in late autumn, indoor hard court, Sinner doing what Sinner does, moving cleanly, returning cleanly, closing without drama. He won that tournament. Then he went on a break. Then 2026 started. Indian Wells was the first signal that something different was happening. Sinner arrived in the California desert in March and did not drop a single set across the entire tournament. He beat Medvedev in the final 7-6, 7-6, a match that required him to come from 0-4 down in a second set tiebreak, reeling off 7 consecutive points to close it. He did not panic. He did not change his game. He simply raised the level at the moment the match required it and took it home. That Indian Wells title was also his 6th Masters 1000 hard court crown, making him the youngest player in history to complete the full set of hard court Masters titles. Federer was 33 when he completed the same collection. Djokovic was in his late 20s. Sinner was 24 years old and ticking boxes that the greatest players in the history of the sport needed decades to reach. Miami followed. Same result. No sets dropped. First man in history to win the Sunshine Double, Indian Wells and Miami back-to-back, without conceding a set across either tournament. The streak was now somewhere in the mid-teens and accelerating. The tennis world was starting to pay attention, but still treating it as a run of form rather than something structural. Then Monte Carlo arrived and changed the conversation entirely. Clay is supposed to be the great equalizer at Masters level. The surface slows everything down, extends rallies, punishes players who rely on pace over construction, and rewards the kind of physical endurance and mental patience that only the best clay specialists in the world consistently deliver. Sinner had never won a Masters title on clay before this season. His best results at Monte Carlo going into 2026 were modest. The expectation was that this would be where the streak found friction. Carlos Alcaraz was in the final. The man who had beaten Sinner in the French Open final in 2025, holding 3 match points, 5 sets, 4 hours and 26 minutes of tennis. The man who had split the previous 4 Grand Slams down the middle with Sinner between them. That matchup, on that surface, should have been a war. Sinner won in straight sets. After Monte Carlo came Madrid. After Madrid came Rome. By the time Sinner walked onto Campo Centrale at the Foro Italico on Sunday the 17th of May, he had won 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles without any player on tour finding a way to stop him. The streak stood at 32 consecutive wins when he reached the quarterfinals in Rome. That was where Djokovic's record fell, a 6-2, 6-4 win over Andrei Rublev that moved Sinner past 31 and into territory nobody had occupied since 2011. He did not celebrate. He pointed at his team. He moved on to the semi-final. That is the detail that should unsettle every other player on tour more than any statistic. Sinner broke the longest Masters 1000 winning streak in 15 years and treated it like a Tuesday. Not because he is cold, because for him, the number was not the point. The title was the point. And there was still a semifinal and a final left to play. The semifinal against Medvedev ran across 2 days. Physical, grinding. Medvedev tested him in ways that Monte Carlo and Madrid had not required. Sinner came through it. Then, on Sunday, in front of a crowd of 10,500 at Campo Centrale, the Italian president in the stands, Adriano Panatta watching from courtside, the entire country tuned in. Sinner beat Casper Ruud 6-4, 6-4 to win the Italian Open and complete the career Golden Masters. Only one other man in 36 years of the Masters 1000 series has won all 9 tournaments, Novak Djokovic. He completed the feat in Cincinnati in 2018, more than a decade after winning his first Masters title. Sinner did it in 33 months, from his first Masters crown in Toronto in August 2023 to the Golden Masters completion in Rome in May 2026. 33 months. Federer won 28 Masters titles across a 20-year career and never completed the set. He never won Monte Carlo. He never won Rome. 2 titles eluded him forever. Nadal never won Paris. The indoor hardcourt surface was the one environment that consistently resisted him, and despite reaching the final there twice, he never converted. Sinner has now done what neither of them could. The final tally from the streak reads like a document that should not be real. 34 consecutive Masters 1000 wins. 6 consecutive titles: Paris, Indian Wells, Miami, Monte Carlo, Madrid, Rome. 3 sets dropped across the entire run. No Masters 1000 final lost ever in Sinner's career, and in every single one of those finals, he has not dropped a set. The 37 consecutive sets won from Paris through Miami set a separate record at this level, surpassing Djokovic's previous mark for most consecutive sets won at Masters 1000 events. That streak ended at Monte Carlo when Tomas Machak won a tiebreak. But by that point, the match record had already taken on a life of its own. He also became the second man after Nadal in 2010 to sweep all 3 clay court Masters titles in a single season. Monte Carlo, Madrid, Rome, all in the same year, at 24 years old, in his first full clay Masters campaign at this level of dominance. Now understand what this means for the conversation about where Sinner sits historically. He is 24. He has won 5 Grand Slam titles, 2 Australian Opens, 1 US Open, 1 Wimbledon, and Roland Garros remains the only major not yet on the list. He has 10 Masters 1000 crowns. He has completed the career Golden Masters faster than anyone in the history of the format. His win rate across the last 2 full seasons sits above 90%, a level that only 4 players in the Open era have reached in back-to-back seasons. And the last to do it before Sinner was Roger Federer between 2004 and 2006. The comparisons to the greatest players in history are no longer hypothetical. They are mathematical, and Sinner himself refuses to engage with them. After breaking Djokovic's record in Rome, he said he does not play for records. He plays for his own story. That answer is either the most grounded thing a dominant athlete has ever said, or it is the most alarming. Because if the records are a byproduct of him simply playing his own game, the ceiling of what he is capable of is genuinely unknown, which brings everything back to Paris. Roland Garros begins Sunday the 24th of May. The draw was announced this morning. Sinner enters as the top seed and the overwhelming favorite, not just because of form, but because of circumstances. Carlos Alcaraz, the defending champion, withdrew with a wrist injury sustained in Barcelona. He will not be in the draw. The man who beat Sinner in 5 sets at Roland Garros last year, who saved 3 match points in the process, who has been the one player capable of consistently pushing Sinner to his absolute limit, is watching from home. The only Grand Slam missing from Sinner's collection is sitting there without its defending 6th champion. The man who most recently showed the ability to beat him on clay is absent. Sinner walks in off the back of 6 consecutive Masters titles, a 34-match winning streak, and a motivation that the Rome Trophy ceremony made visible. When he raised his arms on Campo Centrale on Sunday, this was not the celebration of a man who had achieved what he set out to do. It was the face of someone who had finished one thing and was already thinking about the next. That next thing starts in 4 days. Novak Djokovic, at nearly 39 years old, has played just 1 match on clay this entire season and arrives in Paris with question marks around his fitness and preparation. Alexander Zverev is a threat in the draw but has consistently failed to convert against elite opposition at the moment it matters most. The rest of the field, Medvedev, Ruud, Fils, Fonseca, are quality players operating well below the level Sinner has shown across the last 7 months. There is a realistic scenario in which Sinner wins Roland Garros this fortnight and completes the career Grand Slam at 24 years old. Only a handful of men in history have held all 4 major titles. Doing it before the age of 25 has never been done in the Open era. The record that made even Nadal look human has already fallen. The next one waiting in Paris is a different magnitude entirely. McEnroe went speechless in Rome. What he was actually reacting to was not the streak, or the Golden Masters, or the 34 consecutive wins. He was reacting to the realization that this is not a hot run of form. This is not a player peaking at the right moment. This is a 24-year-old who has systematically dismantled every measuring stick the sport has used to define greatness, and who is 4 days away from standing on the court where the last one is still standing. If this gave you a perspective on Sinner's dominance that you have not seen laid out this way before, subscribe to the channel right now. We cover every story in tennis from the angle the headlines miss. Hit the notification bell so the next video reaches you the moment it goes live, and drop your answer in the comments. Does Sinner win Roland Garros this year, or does Paris finally give him the resistance that nobody else has managed to provide? The run started in Paris last November. There is a certain poetry in the idea that it ends there too.